Today on Mid-Missouri Art News, we visit with Chester Lux of Sedalia, Missouri. I'm Rick J., your host, and this is Mid-Missouri Art News. Welcome everyone to Mid-Missouri Art News. I'm your host Rick J. and we're viewing today with Chester Lux of Sedalia, Missouri, which is an aluminum cast artist. Please join me, if you would, inviting Chester to the show. It's great to have you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, Chester.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, you have a couple questions to more or less touch base with our viewers. In aluminum casting, as an artist, your creative pieces stand a well representation of your work. But how did you become interested in aluminum casting artwork?
It seems like when you first embark in any kind of art, you have to take baby steps because you're really not sure if you're going to invest into it. So the baby steps were, can I do this? Can I do that? Is this a medium that is flexible? So when I first started, there was just trinkets. There were just little things like boxes and coins and challenging things.
I see.
And as the challenging things became less challenging, you got to challenge yourself more. So then you go on to more complicated things. So yes, that's where it all pretty much started, with just building up the tools and.
But what was the first idea? Did you see this artwork at some other exhibit, or this is something you snapped in your mind?
What I do now is far different than what I started with, but yes, I think I've got a little bit of intuitiveness to what I'm doing now from what I've seen other people do, like portraits and things like this.
In the very beginning, what triggered this?
I think it was the availability of the material. You can get aluminum for just about dirt cheap, or you can walk your dog to pick up cans. It's pretty available. It's the means of getting it from the raw state into the liquid state that became more of the challenge later on.
Well, had you seen some type of a casting before this, plaster of Paris, or just I've got aluminum, maybe I have to do something with it?
Honestly, a friend of mine suggested doing an awards. And we thought about doing them out of wood. We thought about doing them out of clay,
like trophies.
Yes,
oh,
just little things that appreciation stuff,
Oh, great!
And when we started thinking about it, somebody sent me a video from YouTube. And the gears started turning. So I built a $20 forge using briquettes, melted down my first bit of aluminum, made some challenging things at the time. They were challenging.
I see.
And it was a success. I'm like, wow, what else could I do with this?
So that's what happened. I guess like an artist, we get these ideas, and you might haven't seen someone else's work. We didn't have YouTube, so I was inspired by other people's works and what maybe I could do with a paintbrush or a pencil, what have you. I also have to say welcome to Chester's home here in Sedalia, Missouri. We're filming outside, so we've got airplanes going over, we've got people mowing grass here in the spring of 2020, and we have traffic going by. So please bear with us or enjoy it. We even seen a couple cardinals out here doing their song a few moments ago. So all back to Chester. Have you had any basic acknowledgments that in the past years or so that endorse this
The things that are satisfying about
satisfying?
the aluminum is there's a percentage of appreciation, you know, and when somebody asks me to do a portrait of somebody that's valuable to them, so it's dear, and you hit that mark, like most artists in doing portraits do, they hit a mark and they see that emotional response, you know that is an heirloom to them forever.
Yes.
You know, that's satisfying.
Right. Now you in the second segment after the break, we're going to have a demonstration, and I believe you are creating a portrait in that.
Yes.
So you'll see exactly what Chester is speaking about. So that is probably the best acknowledgement.
Rewarding.
Rewarding. Okay. Excellent.
Rewarding.
Now, do you have any future exhibits planned? I know you're a member of the SVAA, that's the Sedalia Visual Arts Association here in Sedalia. So do you have any exhibits? I know your friend Blanca is working on promo packages, you shared with me. So what's your plans for this, the next, let's say this next 6 months to the year, after we get past this pandemic situation?
Yes, the pandemic. We have a show at the City Hall here in Sedalia, which provides a means for some exposure for our art group. We've also have a show at the hospital in the cafeteria, which is a pretty nice venue. There's a couple pieces that I have there. There's a lease. I believe there's a Warrensburg show that's been postponed, but I feel that as soon as they get it up and running again, there'll be something in there at their City Hall or their youth center, I think it is.
Anything else happening within your own artwork that you planned?
I would like to have some orders in color portraits. Most of them are in black and white, but if I can get into the color aspect of portraits, which obviously are a little more pricey, but I think people will really appreciate it.
I see.
Some of the-
So that you're speaking of then commission work. So you do
Yes.
take on commission work. Not we're talking more than one talent here. We're talking about aluminum casting, portraits, what have you, at this time, but has many talents. And we're going to do future episodes of some of these other talents. You'll be amazed if you're just looking at the home here, the frontage. You'll see that it's been totally reworked by Chester. So we look forward to more interviews and some of your other talents that you seem to have been inspired by, or just the natural abilities, I guess, from the heart. Well, we're going to have to take a break. I guess I should before the break. Would you like to give an email address or phone number if someone's interested in a portrait or some type of reward, what have you, that you do make more than just portraits?
Yes. There's quite a few things that I can manifest out of aluminum. Some more tricky than others, but portraits are something that fit with the individual who orders. You know, I can do something like that. If somebody were interested, if anybody were interested, it would be Trevor Mopple Topplehead on Facebook. Is probably the best way to contact me with an order and provide pictures through the messenger.
I see.
Yeah.
So the Fox, the Facebook Messenger.
Yes.
That has come out and people are using now. What can you spell that out for the folks?
Trevor,
Okay.
TREVER MOPLETOPLEHEAD
.com.
.com
So that's
under the
the
Facebook,
website.
the Facebook website. Yeah.
The Facebook website is
Yes.
the best place to reach you.
That's
okay,
right.
very good. Well, Chester, we must take a break. Again, after the break, Chester's going to share a demo that he's prepared showing you the steps of developing an aluminum cast portrait. There's more right here at Mid-Missouri Art News. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All right, please stand back, sir. We're just dumping a little excess sewage here. I hope those shoes aren't new. Oh, God.
Let me welcome you into my house as we will proceed to go through to the studio. In the process of the foam, prior to the casting of it, must be prepared and in layers so you have a slightly convex portrait, which is pretty cool, which is part of the features of having an aluminum. Some of these are molds made from foam that will be and have been cast already. So this gives you an example of what they look like prior to replacing the foam with aluminum. Some of these you should recognize, and some of them may not because it's kind of weird, but fun. It's fun. They're pieces that I've already casted, and it's made of just regular, styrofoam for the backing, then craft foam for the layers. And there's several layers there. As you can see, it creates the muscles and nose and highlights of the individual piece. Hopefully you recognize at least one or two of them. The next step, of course, other than building a forge, is collecting the cans. And I have to emphasize how many cans it takes to get a crucible full of aluminum. It's ridiculous how many cans. It's like piles and piles of cans. It probably takes about 500 cans just to fill one crucible up. 500 cans is probably about 20 pounds of liquid aluminum. If you're lucky, maybe about 20 pounds, maybe 15 to 20. Each of the aluminum portraits weighs 11, but you got to consider sprue weight. Sprue weight is what forces the aluminum into the mold.
Go
ahead. Following filling the forge up with the aluminum cans, you have preparing the mold. The mold requires a little bit of finesse. you don't want to damage the mold while you're packing. This is not an open cavity mold. I'm replacing the existing foam with aluminum. So I'm leaving the foam in the sand, which there are several different ways of going about foam casting. There's foam casting. There's open cavity casting. There's plaster casting, which I might talk about later, and a lot of these portraits are done just this way. I put the whole thing in, so if I mess up, I've got to remake the mold. If it doesn't turn out in any way, I've got to remake the mold. Which is about 50% of the project. 50% of the project is probably just making the mold, preparing it for this process right here, which is packing. Adding more cans and running around in circles is a lot of what this is. And I'm flipping it. I'm flipping it because you want to maintain front and back situations. There's a lot of messing with sand. There's a lot of messing with sand. But there's making the sprue funnels. You pack sprue funnels. That's right there is what holds my crucible as I pour the sprue, and then of course I pull them out. It's not quite ready yet, but there's a little bit of a packing close-up, quickly going through some of it. This is using foam. If the sand becomes too loose, I've got to use foam instead of an open cavity sprue hole. It's similar to the same thing I was doing prior, but this segment of the video is kind of going into a plaster open cavity procedure, which is not something I do with the portraits, but these are just to demonstrate all the different types of stuff that goes on. There's loose sand casting. There's plaster casting. This is a lost wax plaster, which is we're trying to take a wax, and at this point we're melting the wax out of the plaster, which will make an open cavity to pour aluminum. So it's kind of interesting to put this in here, just because it's what commonly is done with professionals. They will use a plaster cast lost wax method. At this point, I'm taking the wax out of there to save it. We don't want to either catch it on fire or we can reuse that wax. But taking the wax out of the little toaster oven, maintaining a temperature about 250 is appropriate. 250, 300 gets a little bit hot in there, but we don't want to burn the plaster. We want to maintain its integrity. So that's what that segment's about. At this point, we are getting into slag. The slag is something that needs to be identified, because a lot of people say, well, we handed you 50 pounds of cans. What happened to our 50 pounds? Well, a lot of it is scooped out in slag. It's the stuff that doesn't melt. It's oxidized aluminum, and it's debris that's not aluminum at all. It can be carbon, it can be paint. All cans have a little bit of plastic in there that burns into just carbon. So at that point, we've got to replenish the aluminum that's missing, of course, with maybe ingots, especially if we were to the point where we're ready to pour. So we scoop out slag. We make a very, very clean crucible full of clean aluminum. And as you can see, there's a lot of slag that comes out. I don't use flux. For those who know anything about melting metals, flux is used to reliquefy oxidized aluminum. So I am taking a lot of that oxidized aluminum out, which probably could be used, but I also use the slag. So having that little bit of oxidized aluminum in there doesn't hurt if I'm using it for cobblestones. It's just lack of waste, and the oxidized aluminum helps hold it together. This pour right here is done in a dry sand pour. It's a little tricky, but the bucket has dry sand instead of packed sand. And again, it's a little tricky, but it allows me to do more three-dimensional things versus having to pack them into a two-dimensional situation. The pour here, I did not fill the crucible quite full enough because I didn't need that much in there. Probably doing something that's has to have sand completely around. There's dangers to doing this. Everybody, if anybody gets into this, they've got to be super careful. Safety is number one on it. I think one of the things that would be most detrimental is probably flinching. If you flinch in any situation like this, you could probably have more damage done if you just, yeah, that's pouring aluminum into the packed sand scenario. A lot of goes a little bit here, goes a little bit. Sometimes it burps and you have aluminum come out. But as you can see, the aluminum pours in and it starts coming out through the vent. Those are sprue holes, and inevitably will be cut out. As I was talking about earlier, there's your extra 5 pounds, and it presses the aluminum through to fill. When those sprue holes on the outer edge fill, I know that the item in the packed sand has filled completely. So that's a successful pour. They all came up. Here's another pour to the sand, the dry sand method. We're adding some more in there. We're going to melt them down. Here's another pour. As it demonstrates, the aluminum fills in and comes out the sprue holes. A lot of slag. A lot of slag goes on there. And so you get the idea behind slag and the pour. The kind of a close-up there, you know, of fire and everything else briskly going through. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. And then there's the reveal. You know, we often say, oh, you know, did it make it? Did it cross our fingers? You know, it's still hot. You got to be careful. There's a potential of catching the oils in the sand on fire at this point. This piece here was a sign for somebody's farm. Somebody has a nice little farm, and I wanted to make a little thing for them. So this here is more than likely a portrait. The reveal of the portrait is kind of fun, but you got to watch out for the hot sand that's encased around the portrait. So I'm being very careful, scraping them away, and then brushing the old stuff off the top. And you can see that's a portrait of a building. It's a building that they tore down here in Sedalia, but it has historical significance. So, you know, I was like, hey, you know, let's do it. And so it's not defined at this point. There's no shadows, or it's just the lifts of different points of the building. And when it's finished, it'll actually have some more depth because I'll add shadows. I'll put, say for instance, there's something in the window. I'll put in the window. At this point, it doesn't have any of those. Here's another reveal. I believe this is a portrait of Whoopi Goldberg, and again, it's not defined, but it's you can tell where her dreads are and where her cheekbone is and stuff like that. I'll go into a state where it gets definition and shadows, and it'll be pretty neat. It'll be pretty neat. And then from here, I believe you can tell it's still steaming because it's still hot, but it's not beyond the point. It's beyond the point of it catching any oils on fire. I let it cool down a little bit, and I'll put it in the finished work section, which is behind the cement mixer. There is some of the casting of the plaster work, and each one of those has a series of things in it. There is the whoopee that I pulled out. It hadn't been detailed at this point, but it's ready to. It's ready to be detailed. Here's some finished pieces. Albert Einstein. There's a couple familiar faces there, you know. But finished work is usually defined by the shadows and, you know, detailing of the eyes. It's got quite a bit of, sometimes they look nothing like the finished piece when I pull them out of the sand, but there's some good pieces there, some recognizable faces, and for the most part, there it is. Ta-da!
Well, Chester, that was a great demo, and very well an educational piece, informative, so very interesting. And I just want to thank you again for taking time with us here on Mid-Missouri Art News and showing us your talent as an aluminum caster to begin with. And as you see throughout the home and the property, he has a lot more talent. So we'll be sharing here in the future. So, Chester, do you have any closing words for us?
I would say if anyone's interested in this, safety. Safety is crucial to this particular medium. Absolutely wonderful medium if anybody's interested. I do encourage people who are wanting to immortalize loved ones to possibly consider these portraits. They are fantastic. I do my best to make it as memorable as possible. And you can contact me again, Trevor Mopple Topplehead on Facebook. I want to thank Rick for having this adventure today with me. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, and we look forward to spending more time with you within the other crafts. And we want to wish you the best for the future. Stay healthy.
Yes, safety and healthy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you viewers worldwide. Thanks to you too for watching and these different artists throughout the United States that we and Mid-Missouri that we are fortunate enough to spend time with, either at their location, at their home studio, or in the studio at JCTV around the round table. So thank you for watching, and please watch for more. I want to thank also our producer, Gloria Enlow, and crew, and just remember, there's a lot more here on Mid-Missouri Art News, Spotlight on the Arts, and don't forget YouTube. I'm Rick J. saying thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Catch you later.